been 165 days since Israel and the United States launched strikes on Iran, triggering a war that has gradually engulfed much of West Asia and sent shockwaves across the world. Despite mounting pressure and repeated warnings from US, Iran has shown little indication that it is ready to back down, suggesting that the conflict could continue for much longer. In the latest, Mohammad Reza Naqvi, a senior advisor to the chief commander of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, has made a big statement. He says that the IRGC is shifting from a primary defensive posture to an offensive doctrine. During a televised interview, Naqvi flexed Tehran's military might, saying the Islamic Republic's production of ballistic missiles and drones exceeds the rate at which it deploys the hardware. Long-standing international economic sanctions on Iran have forced the country to shift from external dependence to internal self-reliance, turning economic isolation into a strategic doctrine of national preparedness and domestic resilience. Naqvi said, and I quote, "Even if the war lasts for several years, our ballistic missiles will continue to rain down on the enemy." Listen to this.
Whenever the situation demands and the order is issued, we must be capable of extending operations into enemy territory and conducting missions far from our own land. These are the characteristics of an offensive doctrine that must be realized. The IRGC is now tasked with achieving this readiness and developing the capability to execute such operations at the appropriate time.
He also credited the armed forces of Iran for successfully confronting the American military, despite US enjoying a markedly larger annual expenditure on its defense and offensive structures. He acknowledged that the military they are currently fighting has an annual budget of 100 times larger than theirs. But various American outlets and officials have attested to the US frustration in the face of this reprisal, citing Washington's strategic confusion as well as depletion of its missile stockpiles. Naqvi acknowledged that the American military is weaker than what they are perceived as. In a fresh threat, a spokesperson of the IRGC said that any renewed threats against the country will put hundreds of thousands of miles of American energy lines and power plants at risk. While tensions persist, Iran has hardened its condition for reopening the Strait of Hormuz. Mohsen Rezai, who's the newly appointed Secretary of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, made Tehran's broader demands clear, stating that the US must end the war, lift its blockade and sanctions, release frozen funds, and agree to a broader regional ceasefire. Iran is building dual economic pressure here. It has choked Hormuz directly while using its Houthi allies in Yemen to enforce a de facto maritime blockade at the Bab al-Mandeb Strait. Now, besides, the Houthis are continuing with strikes against Saudi Arabia. On Tuesday, the Iran-backed group struck several Saudi military concentrations, weapons depots, and command centers in Marib province in Yemen. Now, the group's spokesperson, Yahya Sareh, said that the operation involved a large number of ballistic missiles and drones, causing dozens of deaths and injured. The big question still remains. As the war drags on well into its 6th month now, Iran shows no signs of backing down even now. Does the United States have any option left but to concede to Tehran's demands? And the other question, how long can Iran survive? All right, to discuss this further, I'm now being joined by our guest who's joining me from Iran. Ali Salehian is joining us on the broadcast from Tehran. He's a PhD, scholar of international relations and the head of International Department of GPTT. Professor, thanks so much for making time and joining me here on the broadcast. Let's just start. We've carried a lot of details in the report that I just shared with our viewers. As far as the war is concerned, we're in the 6th month now. The initial timeline was 4 to 5 weeks. It has come as a surprise, definitely to the US, of how Iran has fought till now. How long more can Iran last?
First, thanks for inviting me. I think when you see the whole dynamic of the war from the very first date, you would understand it that the whole game is more about the war of endurance. Each side who can bear the strikes better and can stand still during all this kind of marathon would have better hand at the end of the game. We can see that, as your report also tried to mention it, I think after the 28th of February and the 40 days war, I think Tehran felt a kind of existential threat to its sovereignty, dignity, and territory. Therefore, it is ready to, whenever it comes, use any kind of military option to preserve its own national interest. In that very game, we can see that, on the other hand, United States have lots of to lose, other than all the things more related to the global economy, U.S. bases all around the region, U.S. investments in energy infrastructure in the whole region could be targeted easily to Iran. And this is the things that we think is the time is in the favor of Iran. This is why Tehran, in a very consensus role and the view, try to dictate its sovereignty about the Strait of Hormuz, and it is ready to pay its cost for providing a kind of procedure. It's not really about the financial things or any of the, about the tool. It's more related to controlling the security threat raised after the 28th of February and the Strait of Hormuz. Therefore, I think in that war of endurance, due to the existential threat of Tehran and lots of leverages that they are prepared for themselves during all these years, I think the better hand is in the Iran favor, and the time is in the favor of Tehran.
Professor Ali, stay with me. We'll just try to quickly re-establish that connectivity with you. But for our viewers, just bringing back to light that now reports have also surfaced, and these are reports which we also covered right here on WION on the 10th of July, that Israel had given intelligence to the US that there was a threat to the US president. And now reports are suggesting that the US president, in fact, had to deplane from Air Force One, which was gifted by Qatar. He was transported in a catering truck to a transport military aircraft taken to UK, and from there he reboarded the Air Force One. Now I'll come back to our guest, Professor Ali. When these kind of reports come from the US, it's clear that it's going to be extremely concerning for the US as well. How have these reports been received or perceived in Iran, that there was an Iranian threat to the US president's life?
I think Iran made it very clear that there would be costs at the strategic level, at the personal level, for whatever they've done during all these 40 days of war. That at one case, for example, they targeted a school that killed more than 168 people. These kind of things, this kind of actions against all international law or any kind of humanitarian norm, I think there must be a cost, or there must be a punishment. But at the strategic level, at the between two states, I think it's more focused into push United States in a very border that try to understand the cost of any kind of ambitious things to, for example, find another Venezuela in Middle East, and try to push it to end this psychopathic cycle of war, negotiation, and violation of ceasefire, and try to reach a kind of sustainable peace.
So just allow me to come in there. I don't hear any rejection from your side. Is Iran or any voices in Iran that you're aware of accepting, and they're openly acknowledging that yes, we are going to take the American president's life, even if that means hitting him or any asset that he's traveling in Turkish skies?
I don't receive, as a kind of non-official person, as a more academic person, I don't receive or hear any kind of official reports or any official statement about it. But it's really clear that at the social level, that you probably see lots of signs, lots of people and movement, not only in the Iran, the whole region, wanted to push these guys and make a punishment for the not only Trump, for the all persons, especially Netanyahu, that push the United States to this war, that there would be cost for them. And this is, I think, the social beliefs. But at the official one, maybe we can find some, just rhetoric or the framework that there would be a punishment. Nobody actually, I think, really framed that we want to, for example, to target Trump or anyone like him.
And when you come to the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, has that officially now been included in this war? Because this was a card that Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf mentioned that they have not used yet. Strait of Hormuz has really choked maritime trade. Bab al-Mandeb is equally crucial as a waterway. Major amounts of trade passes through this region towards the Suez Canal over to Europe. If this strait is also now in the fold of the war, is it official from Iran's side?
Quick point to the previous question. I think when you are targeting head of state of Iran and a religious leader of a country and region, there would be a punishment at different level. But to your question that about the Bab al-Mandeb, I think from the very first date, lots of experts said that in the toolbox of Iran, there are lots of leverages that could, make disruption for United States economic interest, military interest, and strategic one. For example, Bab al-Mandeb or the Strait of Hormuz, a different kind of blockade from the reversible to irreversible version. Also, I think the social stability, the political stability of the region could be targeted other than the infrastructure of the whole of the region. And these are, a kind of toolbox that I think Tehran that are ready to push this kind of button due to very reason that I just mentioned earlier, the existential threats that felt in Tehran, that they are now much more ready, much more open to use any kind of military to, security leverages to push Washington to change its idea toward war.
Yeah, Professor Ali, I think we'll have this conversation again, maybe a little more at length. We're currently having a certain amount of technical issues with your connectivity. We'll complete this conversation maybe at a later stage once again, as this war does not seem to be ending anytime soon. That was Professor Ali joining me here from Tehran, bringing the Iranian perspective to where this war stands 6 months since the day it started. It's well into its 6th month now. Lots more to discuss. We'll continue bringing you the updates.